So welcome along everyone again to Alpha Innovation Campfire. We're into season 2 now, episode 4, the May edition. So looking forward to telling you another story today and welcome you all along. So if this is your first time here, I suppose just to give you a quick overview, Innovation Campfire is all about taking a breather out of your busy day. So grabbing a coffee, tuning in for 15 minutes and hearing a story, an innovation story. And we hope to inspire you with some successes of others, some big companies, the experiments, the tests, the fails, and the quick wins of some of the biggest companies in the world. And it's all about growing a community, so connecting with other like-minded campfires and sharing your success stories and you guys helping us to shape future sessions as well. So today is an interactive session as always. So what we just like to use to do is to go on to slido.com. I'm going to do the same while we're here. Or you can scan the QR code on screen. And if you enter the number 1797190, you'll be able to interact with us in the little polls that we have throughout the session. There's a Q&A there as well, if you guys want to ask any questions throughout the session. And if you just click on the little person icon on the top right-hand corner, if you look at this middle picture here, you'll just be able to update your profile. So just add your name there as well so that we know who we're interacting with as well. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that. And then we'll move on. And there will be opportunities as well to scan the QR code again while I open the polls. So if this is your first time joining, and if you haven't heard of Alpha Innovation before, I'm sure many of you have, we're developing an innovation centre in the heart of Donegal. And I suppose our ambition is to have this vibrant ecosystem of startups and entrepreneurs. And we're doing this through our Innovation Campfire sessions and through some of our other programs as well. But ultimately, we have this ambition of having a lovely campus in the heart of Letterkenny. So you may have seen some of our programs and our events in the past. On the left here, you can see that we have our Startup Bootcamp program and highlights from last year's program. We're currently 5 weeks into the program again this year, and we'll be having a showcase in the middle of June. So we're currently got 15 people coming through this year's cohort, and they're all looking at various problems and trying to find product market fit, and conducting customer development interviews as well to learn about the market. In the middle here, we've been involved in innovation challenges, and you can see here the Tech Ireland National AI Challenge, and I've just seen Christina's joined the call, so great to see you again here today, Christina. Christina actually helped to deliver some of that. And basically, we had 6 teams, 24 participants working in the Northwest around AI's, the Government of Ireland's national strategy, AI here for good. So they were developing loads of different products and solutions around, ethical kind of approaches. And we actually had a national winner as well come from the Northwest at the national meetup in Galway, which we were delighted about. And they got access to Google and OpenAI's latest AI tools as well throughout that challenge. And finally, as you can see here, Disrupt by the Sea on the right-hand side, this is one of our pitch competitions, our kind of a showcase event. And our winner this year, Oliver, in the bottom left-hand corner there, you can see, or the bottom right-hand corner there, you can see, took home €100,000 cash investment from our sharks. So we'll be running that again this year. So as we say at Alpha Innovation, feasibility, usually things can be feasible in terms of a product or service being created with a new or existing technology. However, we focus on the desirability and viability aspect. So desirability being a product or service that people want or need. That's why with Startup Bootcamp, we're putting people out to do customer development interviews and learn from the market so that they're building desirable products. And viability, so that the product or service will be profitable. So as we mentioned as well, in Bootcamp, we focus on pricing and the different revenue models to help make those innovations a viable way forward. Is there anything you want to add to that, Kevin, before I carry on?
No, perfect. Great to be here. Sorry I'm arriving late. I'm on the road today.
No worries, Kevin. So, folks, for today's May edition, we're looking at Ireland's enterprise strategy and focus. So Enterprise Ireland have released a new strategy from 2025 to 2029. And we're just going to look at a couple of videos from Enterprise Ireland, one that talks from the business perspective, and the other that talks about their strategy going forward, and we'll take away some insights for that as well. So just before we get started, and what we ask you to look out for in today's session, we're just going to do a little poll just to make sure the Slido is working. So first of all, we just want you to answer this question. So how many Irish companies does Enterprise Ireland support? So don't cheat, just make a guess, and I'll give you the right answer once I get a couple of responses through. So we have one answer for over 3,000 at the moment. And if you are joining late, guys, you can just scan that QR code or go to slido.com and enter 1797190, and that'll take you into the interactive as well. And then if you just scroll over to polls on your right-hand side. So we've got over 2,000 guests as well, over 4,000. Okay, so the answer is actually over 4,000 companies, and I just see that's the most popular answer there now as well. So quite phenomenal. Enterprise Ireland and their support agencies are I suppose, helping over 4,000 different companies across the country. So what we want you to be out and be on the lookout for today's videos is what is critical to the success of Irish businesses and why. So there's a key thing that they talk about, and especially in the first video. And in the second video, Enterprise Ireland's key strategic themes that they're going to focus on for the next 5 years.
I suppose the message we want to get out there today is that SMEs in Europe are lagging behind. Innovation in Europe generally is lagging behind. And the whole point of these videos we're going to watch today, and the message is that it's not, innovation isn't something that somebody else does. SMEs do and should need to be looking for new ways to diversify and look for those opportunities. And I suppose the whole message from Enterprise Ireland, and indeed from Europe, is as the largest employers of Europe, SMEs are. We always think of the big FDI companies, the big investment companies, but SMEs employ more people than anybody across Europe, that they need to be starting to innovate within their businesses. And there's huge amounts of supports available in terms of R&D investment and so on. And that the videos we're seeing today is around that message of, here's a business that's kind of, diversified into a new market. And this is what Enterprise Ireland are saying in terms of it being a strategic importance to them. But I just think it's really important for people to know that, looking at it, that's the lens you're looking at it in. What can you do as a business? What are you not doing as a business? All these great supports from Enterprise Ireland are there, and other businesses are doing it.
Yeah, thanks for that context, Kevin. And I suppose we'll look at that as well in a bit more detail just after these videos as well. Great. So I'll just play here, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear the sound.
25 years ago, Enterprise Ireland was created as an agency in its current form. And you can see just some of what we've delivered in the past 25 years here, culminating in the results we're announcing today.
As an agency, we invest heavily in research and innovation, both directly within companies, but also in terms of the research ecosystem. Innovation is critical in terms of companies' ability to stay ahead and to be resilient and to continue to grow business, and the important role of research and development to underpin that innovation agenda.
One core reason has been the investment in research and development and product development. You look at, there's so many Irish companies that have developed very innovative products that are solution focused, and that has allowed them companies to really build marketable products, because the reality is we can't be the jack of all trades. We can't just make a standard widget. So as Irish business, a lot of companies have focused on niche products, product development for specific market segments, and that has allowed Irish companies to be successful worldwide as such.
So guys, that just talks a little bit about, I suppose, Enterprise Ireland, where they're at, and I suppose what the businesses value. And just before we show you the next video, I suppose, to Kevin's point, the strategy that we're going to look at, the strategy video, supporting SMEs supporting scaling SMEs is a key point of that strategy. So just I suppose a line here that I took out from the strategy is that it's critical to the continued success of the Irish economy that Irish SMEs are seeking to scale into international markets and are empowered to do so from an Irish base. And I suppose, why are they really focusing on supporting scaling SMEs? Well, to Kevin's point, 99% of the micro and small enterprises across the EU are micro and SME. Sorry, 99% of the enterprises across the EU are micro and SMEs. And within Ireland, 99.8% of all the enterprises in Ireland are SMEs as well. So it's a considerable amount of the workforce that's being supported, up to 70%. And it makes up nearly all of the businesses that are in our landscape. there anything you want to add to that, Kevin, before we look at the next video?
Yeah, I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was 99.8% in Ireland. That's massive, and 99 across Europe, 70% of the workforce. So this shows how critical it is that actually those businesses are innovating. The large businesses do innovate, but look, they're only like what, a percentage of 1%. I think that if you listen to what Martin McVicar said there, which was really interesting, he said, we can't just be businesses that make widgets that everybody else makes. We have to have something really unique about that widgets, and it can't be about the price. It can't be about quality, because you expect quality. It has to do that job that the widget or whatever is doing much better and more competitively, but also uniquely in the sense that there's IP involved that can scale. And here's the key point: scale internationally, because Enterprise Ireland are looking for businesses that are export focused. And what we find in a lot of SMEs, by virtue of how you describe an SME versus an innovation-driven enterprise, they are looking kind of at often regional or sub-regional markets. For anybody listening today who's in that, you're obviously missing out on an opportunity. And Enterprise Ireland, unfortunately, won't work with you if you're just focusing on the local market. The local enterprise office might, but it won't be the same range of supports. So I guess my drum that I'm always banging is, can this scale? Is this a big enough problem? And going after those opportunities. I'll say a little bit more in a little while about that, because I'm here in Galway at an event, a medtech an event with Enterprise Ireland and a number of others. And there was a few key points that came out of that along those themes. So we can go back to them later on, maybe.
Yeah, but just to add to that, Kevin, I suppose I was reading about Martin before this session as well, and I suppose he's a real example of being export focused. CombiLift are now exporting into more than 85 countries. I was just reading a little bit earlier on. So, his real focus on exporting, I suppose, is why he's done really well.
Yeah, well, when you look at it, like the market, what are we, like 6 or 7 million people in this whole island, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a bit more now. I haven't been keeping up with the numbers, but you're not going to scale a business if you're focused on Ireland or even Ireland and UK. And so you have to decide, okay, where's the big opportunity? And it's like what we ask in our businesses when we first talk to them, where is the opportunity? How big is this? And we don't worry about the technology at the beginning, but how big of it is more important than I've got a lovely widget I've developed, So Martin would not have been there if he hadn't kind of spotted that opportunity. And he's not making something that everybody else makes, or he wouldn't be in that market either.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. So now, folks, this is just a little video on Enterprise Ireland's new strategy from 2025 to 2029. So we're just going to play this, and then we're just going to ask for your takeaways from today's videos, and I suppose myself and Kevin's conversation.
At Enterprise Ireland, we have a vision for Ireland's future, where exporting Irish companies lead globally and become the primary driver of the Irish economy. To deliver this future, we're accelerating Irish business to start, compete, scale, and connect. This means supporting bold new startups with the potential for long-term success, helping sustainable and innovative businesses compete on the world stage, growing internationally renowned companies that make an economic impact at home, and connecting Irish companies to our world-class business ecosystem. We'll achieve this by igniting innovation through investment and collaboration, by embracing sustainability as a competitive advantage, by funding ambition and developing the leaders of tomorrow. And we'll do it by putting the needs of exporting Irish businesses at the heart of what we do, working together as one global team. We see the future, and the future starts here. Enterprise Ireland.
Okay, folks, so I'm just going to open up the poll on Slido now. So if you swipe over to the poll section on your phone or on your laptop, you'll be able to now, I suppose, give us your takeaways from today's session. So I suppose from the two videos, what have you learned? Is there anything that's really stood out? Pop it into the chat, and I suppose myself and Kevin will reply to them. So I just see the responses coming in here now, folks. So just see if there's any others before we get started. So let's scroll down. Anonymous, export. Yeah, I suppose that's a recurrent theme across both videos. Let me see if there's any other export focused ones here. Johnny, referencing back to your point that you need to be export focused. Yeah, the last line I think they mentioned in the video was exporting Irish businesses is at the heart of what we do. So that's a key point is being that export focused, and you're only going to avail of those supports, I suppose, if you do have that global mindset and you want to be export focused. Anonymous didn't realize that SMEs are such big employers. Yeah, it's a phenomenal figure, I suppose. 99.8% in Ireland and 99% across the EU. I just see we've got a little word cloud here as well. Export, international, business. Think international and global from the start. Yeah, great.
That's a good one there. Yeah, from the start, because then you don't make the widget that everybody else is making.
Exactly. Don't be making what everyone else is making. Yeah, that goes back to your point, Kevin.
Niching down into specific solutions, really understanding the problem, which is good. That's something we can ask people straight away on many of our programs. Do you really understand the problem, or making something shiny?
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of links, I suppose, to that point further down as well about being different or unique, and then looking at scaling. Then let's see.
What's
There's a
that
couple
long
more.
one there? More SMEs to look at their options, whether it be a VEI supports, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, look beyond their region, selling nationally, internationally scaling is key. Yeah. Leaders for tomorrow who can leverage international opportunities and international business ecosystem available through. Very good, Deirdre. Yeah, the leaders, that comes down to a lot of the themes here around being export focused from the beginning, being ambitious, thinking internationally, not doing what everybody else is doing, not head in the sand, I suppose. I think Deirdre captures it there, that it does come down to the leaders of tomorrow being developed that feel that they can, because I think sometimes people are limited by their own I suppose ambition or their world life experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I would agree with that as well. It's a good point as well, Deirdre. Thanks for jumping on today. There's a couple more here as well. A lot of responses. How do Irish businesses move from a local market to an export market? Maybe they don't know what we make. Maybe if you could elaborate on that one, guys, that would be good. Yeah, EA is committed to the future of SME scaling. I think that's clear. Christina, thanks for joining, Christina. She loves the tagline: start, scale, compete, connect. And the video is quite inspiring. That's great. That's what we hope to do, is bring inspiring videos. So I'm glad. If we don't have any others, folks, we might move on, Kevin, to some of our takeaways, I suppose, in more detail. But I do see a participant's typing here, so I'll just give it another second. I'm just double checking that we haven't missed anything. Don't be the jack of all trades, get really good at one area, Maria. Yeah, that was, I suppose, leading back to the point earlier about niching down into a specific solution. Great. I still see one person typing. Oh yeah, to clarify, I'm making X, so how do I find out what Y the global market wants? We are so busy, no time to explore. Yeah, I suppose it's something that myself and yourself, Kevin, would always preach, is I suppose you have to dedicate the time into researching and then I suppose innovating, because a lot of businesses just get stuck down in the day-to-day. And I suppose last month's Campfire episode, we talked about that, about working on and not within the business all the time. So I suppose it goes back to that point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes back to Deirdre's point as well. And Deirdre, good to see you on again, and Christina and all the others at Neve. So Deirdre's point there really kind of sums it up, doesn't it? That it's the leadership, and somebody else mentioned the mindset and being focused on export from the very beginning. this is an individual who's too busy doing X and getting it out onto the trucks and off down to the customers, that they're not looking for Y. And unfortunately, the world is changing constantly. And the fact that you don't have time to look for the Y doesn't mean that the market is not going to contract overnight for X. And your business, you're going to have a lot of time in your hands, unfortunately. Somebody in an event recently said to me, actually, it was another great innovator, Martin McGuinness from MMG Ocean and Killybegs, who are now working in the offshore energy space. And Martin says, used to be that innovation was a choice if you wanted to stay ahead. And he says, now it's a case of survival. He says, innovation now is not a choice anymore. It's if you want to be around in a few years' time, you have to be innovating. It was on the MSc in innovation down in the ATU last Thursday, I think. I was talking to the teams. So I think that kind of sums it up there. Like, you may not have the time to look for why, but don't wait until you have too much time, because then you're on the back foot. And I suppose the way a lot of other companies do it, including a lot of companies in our region, would be, we're not saying stop making X, but working with ourselves and Alpha Innovation and others around the region and Enterprise Ireland, all the great, by the way, a lot of this is funded. It doesn't even cost the business anything, but set a little bit of time aside to find the why. We find time to answer our emails. We find time to have our water cooler conversations, which are really valuable. But if we're not putting a little bit of time, 5% or whatever a month, and using techniques, because we have tools and techniques. That's what I was talking to the teams on the MSc last week about. If you're not finding that time will find you. Change will happen to you. Change be upon you. It sounds like a proverb. But there's Martin McGuinness, doing all sorts of work in the offshore energy space. And there he is, finding the time in that busy week, busy month, to come and meet and do the Masters in Science of Innovation. Also, the CEO of the Galway races was in the room. A lot of really busy people. These people are not people with a lot of time, but they're making the time for that thing.
They're not
so
standing
it's a
still,
long
Kevin.
answer to an anonymous question, but you don't have a choice, I'm afraid.
Exactly.
For example, my own, I was working in Europe, leading out in innovation, and COVID happened, and I would have done a lot of work, with. I use structured processes so that they're repeatable and they're efficient and so on, and a lot of the tools. And then overnight, I couldn't fly to Finland to do the in-person program that I would normally do. So we had to innovate overnight, and we did it. And I developed it into an online garage sprint. So you can do it, but sometimes crisis is what makes you do it. But that's kind of firefighting innovation. I thought I was ahead, and there you go. You get caught out by something that nobody could ever have predicted, and hopefully never will see again. So that goes back as well. If I wasn't of the mindset of change, embrace change, and look for opportunities in the challenge, then I think I would have said to the Finns, "I'm sorry, Finland, I won't see you for a few years."
Yeah.
That doesn't either.
And Kevin, you just made a good point there in terms of, you shouldn't be doing firefighting innovation as well. It's like, you always mention to me, it's like a muscle innovation. You have to constantly be training it and practicing with it. So it's something that needs to constantly be in your mindset and focus if you're a leader. And I think it's Deirdre here again that's added just another comment. Mindset and looking to learn how to have a longer term view and vision. Mentors and coaches are available along with AI tools that can help optimize work and shed a light on global market opportunities. So there, I suppose, answers the previous anonymous question about, how do you get how do you get time to, focus on the why? There's a couple of options there in terms of what you can do to help get to that. Christina's also just mentioned, it was mentioned SMEs in Europe are lagging behind. Such a positive to hear 99.8% of enterprises are in Ireland. Mindset and consistency definitely essential to success also. Yeah, great point, Christina. And yeah, I figured you meant lagging and not laughing, don't worry. So folks, I suppose to that point of innovation being critical to the success of Irish businesses, that's why Enterprise Ireland are putting such a focus on businesses, focusing on innovation, research and development. So, I mean, Maria Donoghue mentioned in her video, that they heavily invest in innovation within businesses and the research institutions. and she mentioned that it's, you know, critical for a company's ability to stay ahead. So it goes back to your point, Kevin, about, you know, if you're not innovating, you're going to fall behind, and time's going to catch up with you. Unfortunately, it's not an option anymore. Do you want to talk about this other point Kevin Martin mentioned?
The building products that are solution focused. Oh yeah, reality is we can't be jack of all trades and focus on the niche to be an expert in that one area. Yeah, so I think they all fall out of that same point of what you're doing has to be kind of unique and compelling. Now, bear in mind that you know, as we talk about that kind of innovation muscle, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and create the thing that changes the whole world, having done nothing up until this point. But you may do something which is around innovating around how you work or your processes, or even how your leadership report to each other, or even innovating around how, you know, you set time aside to learn the tools of innovation. So you do need to do a bit of that in order to get to the point of, you know, finding that very niche thing. What are you really good at? Where you can really compete, and very, very important. You know, I call them Me Too businesses, jack of all trades. You know, there's 1,000 other restaurants. You know, what's going to be different about you? I mean, obviously, sorry, we're not talking about restaurants because that's very locally focused, but you could be somebody who does amazing food product and decides that the Asian market is the one you're going to go for. And again, you know, how can you be unique in an Asian market? Well, there are all sorts of opportunities for Irish businesses. Products that are solution focused, though, is really important. I mean, think about what is the need. So I'm down here in Galway today. The first presentation, Simon stood up and he told us about a problem he's addressing, which is reducing unnecessary amputations in diabetes customers, his diabetes patients. And we all went, what? Wow. So he didn't tell us, I've got this amazing technology that does this thing. He told us about this big problem that exists. And he told us many people across Europe are affected by that. And they've done something really unique, and he showed us how this is a traditional way of identifying problems in diabetes patients, and this is how we do it. And he talked about how when he went into Europe, you know, the first 3 times they didn't quite get what he was doing, and then he just made it really, really simple and went, "This is the problem. This is how many people are impacted. This is how we're addressing it." And I suppose the reason why I'm telling that point is, you know, all morning here, it's very medtech, medical devices focused here today. And that's why I'm here. And a lot of what we heard was that Europe wants to really drive innovations out of Europe. Okay. So when we talk about Enterprise Ireland is like the local wing of the European mantra. So we were talking about, you know, your European Innovation Council and the European Innovation Bank investments. And one of the things that we were all agreed on was that, you know, we don't want to hear somebody saying, oh, they're going to grow their business and then they're going to grow it into the US. You know, the reason why Europe is investing heavily in innovation, and that spills down into Enterprise Ireland's funding pot, is we have to compete with China and the United States in terms of European innovations. The whole geopolitical landscape has changed over the last while. We see the power that the tech, you know, the term that they've been christened as oligarchs in the US have, 5 or 6 companies, you know, controlling, you know, all of Europe. This is why Europe is investing billions. So all of this is around, again, I suppose, when we talk about that urgency, that firefighting, we are at the point now of urgency. And now we need to really own these innovations in Europe. So a lot of the theme today was we don't want US capital coming in here to buy innovations. We want our business to be innovating for Europe because we want to have some of those companies in future from Europe making a bit of influence. So it's all possible. But again, I keep referencing Deirdre, sorry. It's back to that mindset and culture of, tapping out into those mentors and coaches that actually have that vision and will really inspire you and work with you to make sure you execute. But that's kind of what Martin's getting at, you know, has to be problem solution. We know we've got a problem in Europe. That's the whole investment piece. And not that there isn't investment, but there aren't people focused purely on the innovation European problem. And we want to do things that are really unique. And everything we heard this morning here was like, oh my God, this is incredible. This actually is coming out of Europe. And in fact, it's not even coming out of Europe. A lot of this stuff is coming out of Galway in Ireland. So I just had a chat with Simon, who was doing the diabetes piece. and really great guy. And I asked him, like, would he talk to some of our business? And he says, absolutely. So there's a lot of good people doing it. Martin's another great example. Martin's a great supporter of ours, really accessible. So, you don't have to feel like you're in isolation and you're starting from zero. There are people out there that will give you advice, and there's funding from Enterprise Ireland. So it's kind of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. It's just about figuring out, well, what machine in the gym should be using to, exercise that particular innovation muscle. And unfortunately, people start the gym and don't continue.
Good point, Kevin. And just, I suppose that point about being solutions focused as well means that you're solving problems. That's the main point of your business. So, and we always tell businesses, Kevin, in our boot camps is, customers don't buy products, they buy solutions to their problems. So being solutions focused is really, really key.
Yeah, one guy said today, a guy called Brendan, who's got another great company. He deals with arthritis in thumbs, and they've got a little kind of implant they do. And he talked about scale of the problem, and he talked about 30 million Europeans are affected by this. And I was going, I never even knew like arthritis in thumbs was an issue. And then he talks about all the problems associated with that, not being able to take the lid off your medication and so on. And he very much said the problem. And what he said was, it was really interesting. He said, when you sit down, think about your line that when you're at a wedding and you sit down next to somebody and they say, what do you do? And he says, I have a simple line, which is not all the detailed high technology. He's a medical doctor, not all the great ways that it, it addresses certain technical issues. He says, I've just got one or two liner, which is like, this is what we do. He says, have that wedding answer. I thought it was a really great
That's good.
way to describe it. What's that wedding answer of what you do that somebody doesn't go, oh yeah,
It's a good point. Yeah, it's very good. Well, we'll be doing wedding lines now going forward. And then I suppose our last takeaway, folks, Kevin, and jump in here at any time, but I suppose, Christina, you mentioned that you love the line in terms of start, compete, scale, and connect. So we thought of it almost like, if you are diversifying into new markets as an SME or a larger enterprise, they're almost encouraging you to act like a startup. So, in terms of start, you should be researching, experimenting, allowing yourself to take the time out and look at what that why is, and then fail, iterate, and pilot your new innovations. And then in terms of competing, then you'll find your product market fit if you're working that innovation muscle. You should be able to find your white space and compete within that market. And maybe, do you want to pick up on the scale and the connect piece, Kevin?
Yeah, so obviously scale is one of the first questions we ask. So it's not sequential like this, but you do scale after you've competed. But, one of the first questions you should be able to answer very early on is, will this scale before you've built anything? And, we have this SAM, TAM, and SOM kind of diagram where we ask, what's the scale of the opportunity or the problem globally? And what's your slice that you're going after initially? So you can do all that research up front, and it's very, very easy. It doesn't have to be too complicated. And of course, now with artificial intelligence, I've seen some tools where you can do that like within seconds. So there's no excuse. Testing that. So, you may have identified something, but now can you test that you can actually get into that market? What's the supply chain like? Because it can be one thing having a great problem, it can be another thing having a great solution to that problem. If you don't understand the supply chain and test whether you can open up those conversations, maybe you shouldn't start building today. It gets a little trickier when you go look at diversifying into global markets because you maybe don't have a presence there. But you don't have to go to China initially. You can go to the US, or you can go to the UK or Germany. But the key word there, I suppose, is diversifying. Moving into a new space. Because if you've built a business in one way, you can actually then duplicate that. But sometimes people forget all the techniques and tools and knowledge they have. But global is the real important piece there, because you won't scale if you can't do this globally. And you probably mentioned Pathfinders just before I joined our US program. That's all about bringing businesses into other markets and getting them to do a bit of market discovery to understand who distributors are in a new market, who should they be talking to.
You're actually front loading our next slide, Kevin.
Oh, good, great.
But yeah, just on the scale piece as well, it's a good point. If you do that research up front, you can kill and pivot quite quickly, rather than going ahead and developing something that there's no global market for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Save yourself a lot of strife.
Exactly, yeah. And then that connect piece, I suppose, going back to Deirdre's point about having the right mentors and advisors, that connect piece, I was thinking of it from, opening yourself and your business up to that external expertise to help you strengthen in your business. So, working with Alpha to help you on your innovation journey. You can do that through alphainnovation.eu/enterprises if you are an enterprise, and we can help you with getting set up on that journey. But, it is important to open yourself up and not just be, I suppose, close-minded and narrow-minded when you're trying to innovate as well within your business.
Actually, that's a good point, Connor, on that connecting thing. Connecting is probably, like, they're all important, right? But connecting is critically important. And people forget, they go after Westpic and local enterprise office and Enterprise Ireland and Alpha and, European Innovation Council and European Investment Bank and so on. They don't realize how well connected we are behind the scenes. And we all talk about the businesses we deal with. And we all say, I've got one coming down the pipeline. So I just had a conversation downstairs where I was able to say, oh, by the way, that business that I sent to you, I reviewed the application before you saw it. What did you think? And we're having these conversations at these events. So none of these applications, none of these contacts are in isolation. Ireland's a very small place. We're all in a similar sort of area. We all have our particular expertise, by the way. We do hand businesses on to the next stage and we take them from the previous stage. And we try to support businesses as they grow and scale, as their needs change. But connecting is really important. Get connected. And as a guy from the Urban Innovation Council said just a little while ago, connect early. Don't wait until you're way down the road and you feel confident and comfortable. Connect. The earlier you connect, the more we can all guide you in the right direction and away from the word that kept coming up today a lot was the potholes. We can help you avoid potholes rather than you go down the bumpy road and 6 months later knowing where they all are.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose in terms of connecting, you can get started with us on your innovation journey. So to Kevin's points, the Pathfinder program is for those enterprises that are innovation focused. And maybe you want to touch on that, Kevin, do you? Just in terms of how you guys got on last year?
Pathfinder program.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Christina was on the Pathfinder program. Christina over in 2023, I think, met Joe Kennedy and had a great experience there in the Cambridge Innovation Centre. We're iterating the program every year. So last year we had businesses, we iterated the program a bit, which was more about building connections rather than kind of seal orders, because that's really the bit you can take home with you. People that, will, after you go home, will be making connections. So 2 weeks ago, we had a company that reached out to us from Boston and they said, hey, can we do a briefing to all the Pathfinder companies around the geopolitical landscape at the moment and how that's looking? And they had really great advice that you wouldn't have thought. We think we're really well know that market and the crazy changes that are happening. But they have some really good advice. In other words, there's some solicitors you can't work with anymore because they're blacklisted. I mean, who would have thought? So those people were really impressed by the businesses we brought over. So it's a Derry Donegal Strabane collaboration, funded by all the councils. We help working with the local enterprise office to identify the businesses, work with them to prepare them before they go out. That was a new iteration to the program. And then over there, they build their relationships and then they come back. And we met the AIM group, who are like an association of manufacturing industries. Very politically powerful, and they're looking obviously at businesses that are going into the US from other countries and basing them over there, like an FDI, like an IDA of Boston or Massachusetts. So really great opportunities. This year we're looking at bringing it to a different place, to be confirmed. We think we know where, but we're still doing the tie down on that. But it's basically a great opportunity for those businesses that are at that scale side that want to be looking at where are those opportunities. And they may come back from the US and say, we're not ready for the US now. We're better off going for the UK first. But at least they know down the road what that journey looks like, more so than if they've never been there with boots on the ground. So the program opens, I think we're going to open in the next couple of months. And then we go out in November and we bring the businesses out for a week where they're based in Boston. But we're looking for those innovation-driven enterprises. We're looking for those businesses that are prioritizing innovation. They're doing something different. There's no point in bringing it to Boston if you're a Me Too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in finding out more about the Pathfinder program, guys, the link is there and check it out. And then if you are at the earlier stage as well and you believe you've saw a scale opportunity, you can book a coaching clinic. Our May and June clinics are now opened, so you can go ahead and book a 30-minute call with us, and we can give you achievable next steps that you can complete to, I suppose, validate the size of the market, and I suppose develop the value proposition around that as well. So guys, finally, just before we finish today, we'd encourage you to spread the word. So we'd love for someone to come on and tell a story. So if you do have a story you'd like to tell, reach out to us. I send the link after the session, so you'll be able to reply there and tell us a story that you have in mind, and we can bring you on the next few sessions. Refer a friend and bring them along to the next Campfire session. And as always, leave a comment as well on our LinkedIn page. We'll be posting about the session in the coming days. Our next session, folks, is on Wednesday, the 11th of June. So we look forward to welcoming you there again for episode 6 of the new season. And that's us, folks. Looking forward to seeing you again next month. And thanks very much, Kevin, for jumping on and giving your insights again, as always.
Thank you. Enjoyed today's story. And I know I ran over lots of new points because I'm just in the middle of this thing down here. But good to see everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.